I'm going to start the YouTube live session right now.
Okay.
Right now, that's everyone that's in the waiting room so far.
Okay. Are we streaming?
Yep, we're live.
Are we streaming?
Good to go.
All right. Can you give me screen share? All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And we appreciate very much your willingness to participate in this town hall meeting. We had heard from, obviously, a lot of parents that they would love to have an opportunity to ask some more direct questions. And so we're going to do that tonight. And we're going to spend some time addressing some of the frequently asked questions, some of the questions that were asked on a fairly regular basis. We put together in a fairly comprehensive document. I would say that for everybody to just understand that many parents have a lot of questions right now, and that is totally understandable. I think everyone does. Teachers do, service providers do. And certainly our parents do as well. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do is to provide as much information as possible. But one of the other challenges is that there are very few answers in some cases, even available to the school system. And so we have done quite a bit on our end to try and work through the executive orders, work through the governor's council and the roadmaps. We're regularly meeting with state and county leaders to be able to make some of these decisions. But I'm just asking for a little bit of understanding. Obviously, I know there's a lot of questions. We're getting literally thousands of them each day. And so we're doing this as an effort to try and help alleviate some of those challenges. With us tonight, we have a few administrators and teachers who have worked on a lot of these different plans. And so I wanted to make sure before I do a little presentation at the beginning that I allow our panelists to be able to introduce themselves, let everyone know what they do for the district, and maybe their current role and anything else they'd like to say by way of introduction. So Travis, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Travis Smith. I'm the technology director for the district and been with Swartz for about 5 years now.
So Travis is the person that is going to be involved quite a bit with Chromebooks and our technology infrastructure, and he wears many hats and makes it possible for us to be able to accomplish much of what we've been able to do. So thank you, Travis, for being with us. And Rod?
Hi, everyone. Rodney Heatherton, Swartz Creek grad, Swartz Creek parent, been with the district for 16 years, currently the deputy superintendent.
Thank you, Rod. I believe Alice is with us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alice Lashbrook. I'm the 1 year under my belt, principal at Moorish Elementary.
Thank you, Alice. And I do believe that Jeremy Love is with us today. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yep, here I am. Hi, everybody. Jeremy Love here. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Elms Road Elementary, and I just wrapped up my 13th year at Creek.
Thank you, Jeremy. And then I believe Tanya Brownfield is having a hard time getting it. I don't know, Tanya, are you on the call today? What? I did not see her in the queue. So Jeremy and Travis, Rod and Alice and I will be here today to be able to answer some questions. Some questions are going to be real specific. We will let you know where we have an answer or where we don't. But the first thing I want to do is walk through some of our learning modalities and what each modality would look like in the fall as a way of trying to help you make your decision by Friday. And so what I'll do is I'm going to actually share my screen. And just by way of orientation, this is our main website. And when you come to the website, there's a little drop down here where it says Parents. And if you click on Learning Modalities, you'll see a resource page. Now, many of you saw this last week when we sent this out. Under each of these links will be several pieces of information. I am going to go through several of these so as I explain each modality. So one of the things that we have decided to do here in Creek is we are offering 3 separate modalities to parents. We understand that there are many parents who are very concerned about sending their children back into the buildings. We also understand that there are many parents who expect their children back in the buildings. And so those are 2 very different expectations. We also know that there's a group of people that are kind of in the middle of that. And so what we've tried to do is we've just tried to put 3 separate options together. I will tell you it's not easy to plan for that, but we have a lot of teachers and staff that have worked very diligently to put all of this together. I'm very proud of the fact that we are offering 3. I believe we're the only school district doing that at this time, which is a great service. So what I'd like to do to start is to break each of these down. First, I'm going to start with face-to-face instruction. So if you click on the link, what you'll notice is it takes you to a page, and this page has a number of basic features on it. So it's going to describe what the modality looks like, and all 3 of modalities are set up on these one-page kind of purview. What I would say about face-to-face instruction is it's going to be the closest thing that we are allowed to do or have to quote-unquote normal or traditional school. You're going to see a lot of things, for example, a Monday through Friday calendar, very similar to the school calendar that we've had in the past, and students will be there on a daily basis. What I will say is that there are a host of security and safety protocols through the pandemic that we will be enacting, and those are things that I'll be talking about throughout the night tonight. If you also would notice that there's a little icon down here that says Canvas. Canvas is an online, we refer to it as an informational highway. It's kind of the landing hub where your student is going to land and have a presence. Every student of ours will have a Canvas account. And the rationale and reason for that is because at any given time, depending on how the pandemic is trending, or even if there's something else that comes up, and we know what happened this last spring, we want to be prepared to be able to offer our kids a completely connected and continued experience. And we were going to be prepared this time. So every student, even in a face-to-face modality, will have a Canvas account. Many teachers in the past have had Google Classroom accounts where the teachers would post assignments and things like that. There will be an opportunity for teachers to utilize very similar platforms and many others through Canvas. And so teachers will have a Canvas presence with all of their children, even in a face-to-face setting. The difference is most of the instruction and most of the work is being done in a face-to-face format. I do want to, as we're talking about face-to-face, talk a little bit about our safety protocols. So this will take you to another page. It looks like this. And as we get into this entire system, what you need to understand about our phases is that anything in the phased plans that we talk about, they relate to the governor's plan for the state of Michigan. So every area has been given a region or a location tag, and then each region is given a particular phase at any one time. And so we happen to be in region 1, and right now we are in phase 4. So if we were to move back into phase 3, 2, or 1, we would not be permitted to have any face-to-face instruction. And so school would be delivered virtually. And so obviously, when we talk about what the school day looks like, it's going to look different than it does in the face-to-face modality. So in phase 4, what you're going to notice is that masks are requirements. All of our students are going to be required to wear a mask in the hallways, any common areas, and students in grades 6 through 12 will be required to wear masks in classrooms as well. This is also true for staff members, bus drivers, anyone that's in the building will be required to wear a face covering. One of the things that we also can highlight there is that students in grades kindergarten or E5 through 5th grade will also be required to wear masks on the bus in common areas, but they are not required to wear their masks in classroom spaces. And there are a number of reasons for that. We'll be having many, many cleaning and sanitation protocols. And so soap, hand sanitizer, we'll be wiping down the desks in between cohort groups of students. All hard surfaces that are touched or frequent touch points will be sanitized on a regular basis. And we will also be asking students to use hand sanitizer in every room before they enter it. So we do have hand sanitizer that will be readily available for those reasons. We will also be building in extended passing time for a lot of these things to take place. And also to ensure that not a lot of our students are in the hallway all at the same time. And we will furthermore be doing many of these deep cleaning sanitation protocols after school is over. So every night we're going to have, essentially, we've purchased a number of machines that will allow us to not just clean, so once the cleaning is done, actually disinfect every surface in the room. And our cleaning team has been training and working towards that end. If you look at spacing and movement, obviously we're going to be limiting number of groups. Even in a face-to-face environment, there are not going to be large assemblies, things like that. And as it pertains to athletics, we will follow the MHSAA guidelines, and they update those. They're scheduled to do another update in another week or so. As it relates to transportation, staff and students are required to wear face coverings. We believe that the load on the buses are going to be around 70% of what they normally are. And so obviously we'll see fewer students on the bus, and we'll be working to try and keep them spread out as much as possible. One thing that I would want to just make a point of referencing here is that we get a lot of questions about how are you doing social distancing in school? Well, there is absolutely no guarantee of social distancing in a face-to-face or a blended model. We are going to try our best to do that when it, for example, pertains to lunches. So during lunchtime, we're going to have at the secondary level, the students split up quite a bit. There's going to be two separate places as well as a staggered lunch start time, so that many of those students are going to see, a third of the students in the lunchroom that they are used to seeing. So we're going to be socially distancing in the secondary lunchrooms. In a elementary school, all of our lunches are going to be done in the classroom. So students are not going to be out moving around and in large groups. So we do have quite a few pieces in place to try and make sure we're limiting large groups and making sure we're providing as much social distancing as possible. But we don't want anyone to think that there will be an expectation or even a guarantee of social distancing on the bus, in a face-to-face classroom, or even in a blended modality, although we'll get to that in a little bit. So in terms of social distancing, the Governor's Council was very clear. The data and research on 2 people wearing a mask the transmission of the virus is very, very low. So as a result of that, masks serve as the required PPE for this particular plan. So that's getting into just a few of the safety protocols, and it was pertinent as we talked about face-to-face. So moving into, I'm going to skip down to online instruction. Moving into the online instruction and helping you understand what that might look like. A student that's in an online environment, they are going to have a different experience than what they had in the springtime. Student work will be assessed and graded. It's going to be a more rigorous process. Students in the early grades in elementary school will be following the common curriculum that our elementary teachers use even in the face-to-face classroom, which is reading wonders and math expressions. There will be an online component to that. Our teachers will also be posting videos, creating additional content. Everything will be housed through Canvas, but there will be other applications that the kids will be able to see and use. At the middle school and high school, there'll be some additional pieces. At the middle school, many of the teachers will be likely using a content platform called Accelerate, which is also going to be housed through Canvas. Again, they'll be building lessons, videos, discussion boards, creating assignments for students. And at the high school level, there'll be combinations of our own teachers doing those very same things, creating those in Canvas and having that done. There are going to be several content providers. One is Kickstand, and the other is Michigan Virtual High School. And so there are chances that depending on the level of the class that the student is wishing to take, we would have a few different options at the high school level. One of the things you'll notice in this document is you're going to see the general weekly time commitment. There's a difference between what we call asynchronous and synchronous learning. So synchronous learning would be where you're sitting in front of a teacher and a teacher is teaching you live in real time and you're responding. In an online environment, that might mean you're sitting in front of a computer screen for the day or a period of time, and the teacher is then teaching you while you're going in that type of setting. The research is not very strong in support of that. Most of our online work is going to be done in what's called an asynchronous environment. And that is where there is a lot of work, or the work for the week is posted, and the family will, and the student will work on that work at their pace and times that work for them. One of the questions that we get quite frequently about online instruction is, what will the teacher do in terms of having any type of interaction or contact with the student? And it is an expectation that our teachers in an online modality will create opportunities for interactive contact. And so those could be Zoom meetings like this. They could be video chats and other types of interactions. And they've been very creative in the past with that. And so each teacher will have an opportunity to do that within their classroom. But the vast majority of the learning will happen asynchronously, which means that the students are going to be working at their own pace. And so as a guide, as a general guide, understand that it's not going to be a student sitting at a computer screen all day long. It's going to be a student sitting and doing their work that has been assigned, and they should be expecting these general timeframes to be considered in terms of how much they'll be doing. I will stress, in an online format, parents at the elementary school need to understand that they're going to be very involved in this process. Obviously, having the content provided, the expertise of the teacher is something that we're going to provide, but the parents in this situation are going to definitely need to be involved. At the high school level, parent involvement is also important, but obviously secondary students have a little bit more autonomy and a little bit more independence and ability to get some of these things accomplished. So that kind of gets a high level overview of what the online modality looks like. So moving into blended instruction. Blended instruction is something that's a little bit unique. It's a little different. And so what blended instruction really is it's a time where students would come to school for a couple days a week, and most of the work is done online. So there's going to be asynchronous work, as I just described, online, where there's discussion boards, posts, assignments that are done, maybe some videos to interact with. but at least 2 days a week, students are going to be cohorted, and they're going to come into school, and they're going to be physically in the class all day. Now, what we've done throughout the district, K-8, is in a blended model. The classroom sizes are going to be significantly lowered. So you should expect around 50% of the students in a given classroom. So the way that you might look at that is you'd say, okay, so if I have a third grade child and they're going to participate in a blended format, that teacher might have 26 students. Well, 13 of those students are going to come to school on Monday and Tuesday, okay? Wednesday is a day that students don't report to school. And then the other 13 students are going to come on Thursday and Friday. And so the teacher will be working with those students in those two cohort groups. In a blended model at the elementary school, as we've said, lunches are done in the classroom. In addition to that, lunches are going to be recess is going to be expanded, and recess will, for blended students, will be done independently of our other children. So they'll be having kind of their own recess time. If you think about a middle school student, it's going to be very similar. They're going to have two teachers in that sense. And the teachers will actually move from class to class instead of the students move. Our blended students in the middle school level will also have the opportunity to take some elective classes. Now, obviously, there are going to be some online electives that are offered that the students can take right in their classrooms, but there are other opportunities for them to, say, participate in the band program. But if a student chooses to do that, band is only offered in a face-to-face setting. So as a parent who's considering that, you'd have to know, there's not a blended form of the band offering. So at the middle school level, that would be how that's taken. And in addition to that, blended students will also be eating their lunch in the classroom. So they're going to be limited. They're not going to be out in the general population as much. And they're also not going to be interacting with lockers. They will not have a locker. Lockers will be reserved for single students only. We're not sharing lockers. And they will also have the opportunity to be in that locker. The blended students will not have a locker. They'll bring their backpacks into the classroom, and they'll largely stay in that room. At the high school level, there were some confusion. And so we've tried to create, if you look at these resource documents, any of these grade levels that you click on will give kind of a sample schedule and more detail. We've updated a few things on the high school blended model because some of our resources were confusing, and so we apologize for that. To clarify, high school students work a little bit more of an independent base, and so they also will be split up. So now if I've got a teacher, say, that has 30 students in a ninth grade blended class, there are going to be 15 of them coming and required to report on Monday. Now, the other group, the other 15 students, would be required to report on Thursday. So it's 1 day requirement. The difference, though, is that the teacher and or the student or parents could say, my child needs a little bit more help. The teacher might say, I need to see these 4 or 5 students, and they would report on that second consecutive day. So the student may, and I'm going to click on this 9 through 12 document so you can see a sample schedule. The student would come to school. It's a required school day for them on Monday. And then on Tuesday, what would happen is they would come on an as-needed basis. If the student is progressing well and does not need to attend, that would be a day for more breakout groups and even a smaller group altogether. There are no scheduled instruction days on Wednesday. And then when you get to Thursday, Group A is going to be working online, okay, on Thursday and Friday. But Group B would start to come to class. And so Group B, if they're a Thursday student in a blended high school class, they're going to come Thursday. That's their required day. On Friday, they may come on an as-needed basis. So they might attend school if they need to, and that would be at the request of either the teacher, the parent, or the student themselves. And so that's something that we'll be able to facilitate. One other quick item here that we wanted to try and point out. We've had some questions about honors classes and things like that. If you click on this high school course selection, it will show you the different classes that we can offer in a hybrid format. We have updated this, and I just want to put a disclaimer out there. We certainly are offering some honors classes in a blended format. Something that you may not know, though, is whether or not we're able to run the course is largely dependent on student numbers. So if we don't have enough students to run a particular course, that may or may not be available as an option. So we are offering it as a class. And the other thing that I would say is that you probably need to look on this document, because there are going to be limited elective offerings. Now at the high school, just as at the middle school, a student could take an online elective. They could also take a face-to-face elective, such as, strength and conditioning or band. But again, to be clear, while they would still be required to wear masks and those types of things, and be in all of the other safety protocols, they would be around more students in the general population in those settings. Furthermore, if I go back to a general schedule, if I was a student that had these 4 core classes blocked together as a blended student, and say I wanted to take band and it happened to be during first hour, if I were on Monday or Tuesday, I would have an opportunity to ride the bus and I could come to school. All of our blended students can be transported on the bus. Some parents may choose to drive them, and that's certainly fine. But one of the things that you need to recognize is if you take band first hour, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that student would need to be able to be transported to school to be able to get to their face-to-face class, even though they're not going to their other blended classes on that day. And so transportation for parents may be a factor in that. We're just trying to offer maximum flexibility and as many options as we possibly can. So if I go back to this particular document, there's a link to the safety protocols, which I've already gone through. I've tried to give a brief snapshot of what the 3 modalities would look like. Obviously, the parents' modalities selection form is very important. We need that to make decisions on where we're going to place your actual student. When we get those survey results, we actually begin the scheduling process and putting them in. And I would also say that in the event that this doesn't get completed and we have to move forward, we will assume a face-to-face placement. So it is important, if you're looking at a blended or an online modality, that you let us know as soon as possible. And the simplest way to do that is just to complete the form. One of the documents that was sent out several weeks ago, we have a resource page for COVID-19. A lot of our communications are there. And then if you click on this document, which was released today, you'll notice that we have a number of frequently asked questions, many of which we'll probably get to tonight. Many documents are linked through here. This particular page represents many questions that we get on a regular basis. I encourage you as parents to look through it. I think it'll hopefully give you a little more clarity as to the different pieces that you may have to consider as you think about your child's education for this particular school year. So with that being said, we would like to reserve the vast majority of the time, which is roughly another hour or so, for participants who are on the call to ask questions. And so any of our panelists will respond to the question. If you want to ask one of us specifically, you can certainly address it directly to one of us. I will say that if you look at your right hand of your screen under where you see all of the different names of the participants on the meeting, there's a little button that says raise hand. And Travis is going to be moderating. And so I'm going to click that right now just so that you can see. If you look at my screen, if you look at my little picture, you'll see the little raise hand icon there. I can click it again and that will lower my hand. If you raise your hand, then Travis will call on you. He will unmute you. And then you will be able to ask your question of any of us, and we'll go through as many of these as we can. I would ask just a couple things before we get started. First and foremost, we're trying to provide this as a service, and we've put out a ton of high quality resources, and our staff's been working very hard. I would just ask that, if your question is, something that is meant to try and get an answer that is helpful and productive, we really want you to ask that, and we hope that you do. But please be mindful of the fact that this is not a forum, as we volunteered to do this, to come on, to yell, to shout, or to create an environment that's toxic. we're all on the same team, and we're working hard to try and do what we can for the kids in this school district, and we're very excited about what's being put together. So I'd like to just kind of put that disclaimer out there. And then the final thing is, if there's a question that you feel has been answered already and you're on this call, you're more than welcome to participate. You don't have to ask the question. We're hoping to get to as many questions as we can. But if there's a question that you feel is more individual and maybe not specifically for or not intended for the large group, maybe we could ask that in a separate message. So we want to open it up. We want to provide an opportunity for you. So let's use the raise hand button, and then Travis will go ahead and call your name out, unmute you, and then you can interact with the panel.
All right, thanks. Looks like the first person up is Sharon Wood. Sharon, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
I was just wondering if by chance, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but a student or teacher does come down with the COVID, what are the plans for the students in the classroom?
Certainly, Sharon, that's a great question. So there's a number of pieces to that question that are fairly complicated. In the frequently asked questions, we address that, but I think it's a phenomenal question, and we will talk about it right now. The basics of this are the health department and or the parents have an obligation to report to the school if there has been a case that's been detected. So let's just say that we're notified of a positive case. We have to participate in what's called a contact tracing protocol. So we will be working very closely with the health department. We will be very cooperative with the health department, and we will be needing to be interviewing particular students to find out, who was the student sitting next to, for how long were they sitting next to them, where were they interacting with any other adults. And then the health department works through those protocols, and we try to determine, and the health department, I should say, determines if there is a need for other people to be quarantine tested. They'll make those decisions. Now, as it relates to communication, we'll be notifying parents, of anyone that could have become, in contact with a particular child. There's students at Genesee Intermediate School District right now. They've had a couple cases this summer. It seems to have gone well. They actually have had to close the program for a day or two to do some contact tracing. We're going to be very flexible and follow the guidance of the health department. It's possible that at an extreme case scenario where there could be multiple exposures, that we would have to close the school down and not do face-to-face instruction for a period of time. So that's certainly a possibility as well. But to the fullest extent possible, we will be, working to communicate with parents when there's a case or when their child may or may not have been exposed. And the health department will be doing that anyway as well, and giving us guidance on that.
Can we expand just a little bit? If by chance you have to close the school down, would those face-to-face students then go to the distance learning, or would they just simply be done until you reopen the school?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And that's what we were kind of alluding to earlier. That's why everybody's going to have an online platform and a login and a presence there, because we don't expect learning to stop. We have the capacity and the ability to continue on with their education. So if we have to close the school down for a week or a few days or whatever that is, we shift into an online learning modality. The other piece to your question, Sharon, is that we could actually do that in the wintertime. If we have a snow day where historically we can't come into the buildings and there's not learning going on. In this particular setting now, as we have this infrastructure being built, our students would be able to do work online in that distance learning format. So that we are expecting them to be able to continue to engage that way. And then as soon as we were able to resume, they would come back to their classes and resume instruction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up looks like is Chelsea Miller. Chelsea, you're unmuted.
Sorry. because I came on to this late, but what I know that we're not going to be doing like lunches. Like I've read that we're not doing lunches. My kid is in elementary, K through, well, 3 through 5 now, but will they be sitting in a classroom, the same classroom all day long? Will that be their schedule, or would they be able to, will they be moving and doing things?
Alice, do you want to take that one?
Yep. So what I can tell you is that face-to-face students will be, at this point in time, we're anticipating that they're going to move to a specials location.
Okay.
So that'll give them some movement. They'll have recess just like they normally would for lunch. They'll just eat their lunch in their classroom rather than congregating in a large cafeteria. So yes, there will be absolutely time throughout the day for some movement. Obviously, we'll take those safety precautions that we need to take, but yeah.
So they will have outdoor recess and be able to play.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Next up, it looks like we got Joanne Doobie. You are unmuted.
Hi there. First, I want to say thanks. You guys seem to have done a wonderful job and brainstormed and came up with some pretty good options for everyone. And I just want to thank you for that. My little one goes to Morris. She was in early 5s last year, and he was tested and approved for the IEP program for speech therapy. How are we going to do that? I know that's more of a one-on-one, but is that still out there for the kids that need, some IEP little extra help?
Rod, do you want to maybe take that one? I will go ahead and I guess take that one. So if you have a student that has an IEP, students that have IEPs, that's really what drives the learning modality choice. So the special ed staff will be reaching out to all of our families that are in that mode, in that situation, to determine what is the best placement for the child. And so that IEP is what drives the decisions educationally, and the parent is a central part of that, obviously. One of the other pieces to your question was, how are they going to maybe do speech therapy and speech services? We will continue to offer those services in a face-to-face format. One of the things that will be a little bit different is that the staff member who's providing the speech therapy will be working with some smaller groups of students, and those students are not going to be pulled from multiple classes. So this is really getting into the details here. But for example, they might come in and they'd say, we're going to take 2 or 3 children that need to get some speech therapy. We're going to come to a particular area, provide that service. They're going back to the same class, and we're sanitizing everything before going to a different class. And that's a little bit of a change, because historically they would pull from multiple classes. And so we're being very careful to make sure that we're not mixing between different groups. And so hopefully that helps. We'll absolutely continue to provide speech therapy, social work services, and all of our special education services. There may just be a little bit of a slight change, as I've kind of explained to some of them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
And great job, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, just letting one more person in here. Looks like the next person up is Michael Ofsenik. You are unmuted. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity for this webinar. I just wanted to know, like, as a working parent, someone who might be working from home 5 days a week, if you're lucky, and let's say you chose the hybrid option for your elementary student or upper elementary or upper education student, would it be possible for someone like that to, let's say, work from 7 in the morning to 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. and have their student kind of occupy themselves for most of the day, and then do a lot of their schoolwork on the at-home days in the later afternoon or evening, including any kind of online talk they would have to have with their teacher? If you understand what my question is.
Thank you for that. Mr. Love, do you want to try and tackle that one?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Michael. So the way we kind of envision hybrid is the face-to-face time would serve as the primary contact time with the teacher. And with the hybrid, there wouldn't necessarily be a requirement to do any kind of online communication with them other than the assignments that are put onto Canvas. So you wouldn't have like a required meeting date like we did in the spring as online. The face-to-face or the interaction with the teacher would take place when they were in school. So that would totally free you up for allowing your child to work through the materials, the online portion, at a time that works best for you guys. Did that kind of answer your question?
I think so. Next up is Emily. Sorry, I don't see your last name, but Emily, if you're on the call, you are unmuted. I'll come back to that one. I'm going to skip down to Terry Cowwood. You are now unmuted. Not sure if you can hear me out there, Terry. Oh, there you go.
Good?
Yep.
Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. If we chose an online or the hybrid option and it's not working for our students, would we be able to change to face-to-face?
Rod, do you want to take that?
Yeah, we're asking everyone from the beginning to try to make a one semester commitment because of staffing. We will obviously look at the individual situations. It'll be much easier to move in the opposite direction, actually, if you are face-to-face and need to go online, especially if you're in a long-term quarantine or a situation like that, where we can move you on to the online platform. We're hoping right now to make these decisions by the first semester, and then take a look at what that staffing looks like again after we have a little more information.
Okay, a couple more things. If we do online, would you be providing Chromebooks, and will there be sports like at high school level?
Yeah, so students that are in a blended or a online situation, we will have Chromebooks on loan. So there's obviously a liability waiver that gets signed, and there's some responsibility on behalf of the family. But yes, we would have those on loan for those students. At this time, full steam ahead with our athletic programs, following a number of the MHSAA safety protocols. So we have not heard any veering from that. So we're going to plan that as we have been since they've announced that we're going to have seasons in the fall.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And thank you for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jace. Jace, if you're on the call, I am going to unmute you right now.
Hi, I'm actually Karen, and I'm Jace's guardian. And my question is kind of out to to all schools, but kind of focusing on Gaines. So in the blended modality, and I asked, this was answered in the frequently asked questions, but I want to expand on a little bit. So if we do the blended, and if there's not enough students at Gaines, and the kids would have to be bused, I understand, to a different elementary if there weren't enough kids to make a classroom. But my question now is, so if there were enough students that were doing the blended option at Gaines or any of the other elementary schools, would each grade have their own classroom and their own teacher, or would you be combining all the K through 5 kids together into one blended classroom?
That's a really good question. So first and foremost, it's going to be very difficult for any teacher to manage in any kind of face-to-face or blended situation, 5 grade levels. That would be quite a tall order. But in the event that there was maybe 2, possibly 3 levels, we haven't really crossed the 3-level conversation, but certainly we have run split classrooms successfully in the past and believe that that's a possibility. But if there were enough students at Gaines that wanted to take a blended format, we absolutely would run that out there with those students. And so that's going to be, kind of an interesting situation that we'll have to follow to see, if most people are going face to face, but we have a number of kids that are wanting blended, could we offer, say 4 or 5 teachers doing face to face classrooms and then 1 teacher doing blended? And then if there's some outliers, we would work with the family. So I think it's going to be, Principal Prayer is going to have to do some one-on-one conversations with the parents and families out there that are looking for that blended option to see what might be available.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one up is Liz. Sorry, I don't have a last name for you, but Liz, you are unmuted.
Hi. I have a real quick question. I have a granddaughter who has dyslexia. If my daughter chooses to do the hybrid, are there programs that can be put on the Chrome that would help her with her reading? Because she has a very difficult time and she's going into middle school. And she's already on an IPE. I mean, she's on that program. And I understand that would be done when she was in the classroom, but when she's at home, is there something that can be installed on the Chrome?
Travis or Rod, do you have an answer to that?
Yep. So on the Chromebook, we have extensions that allow for immersive reading experience. But as far as resources go, we have a product called Reading Wonders. And the Reading Wonders program is what you'll probably be using for supplemental reading curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Do you do math that way too? I mean, can math?
There's a product for that called Math Expressions. They specifically use Think Central, and that's for supplemental math as well.
So my daughter would contact the school when it starts up and make those arrangements, or when she gets the Chrome?
Yeah, the teacher would make the arrangements, and then as far as accommodations, Mr. Bouchon and their team would work on setting that up for her.
Okay, thank you very much, Travis.
Yep.
And you guys are doing a great job.
Okay, next up I got Sarah Clark. Sarah, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I want to know if there's a limit to the amount of students that will be allowed in the classroom for the blended modality model.
Alice?
Yeah, so what you could typically expect is in a typical elementary classroom, let's say we have 26 students, so half would be in a blended classroom at any given time. So 13 to 15 for each cohort.
Okay. And then are the grading, is the grading system going to remain the same?
Rod, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, the grading, the curriculum, we're going to try to obviously use as much common across all 3 modalities as possible. The difference obviously is going to be the independence at each modality.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Paris. Paris, if you're on the call, you're unmuted.
Hi. I just have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
I have 2 students, one in elementary and one going to middle school this year. So I just wanted to know for elementary, because I've heard some talk around the community, that is their day going to be shortened at all, or will it remain the same from 8:40 to 3:40?
Yeah, their days are going to remain the same. So we did that knowing that, people like in your situation where you have kids in different buildings, we have to try and keep the kids in the building as long as possible. So what we elected to do was full school days. There are some school districts who their plans are slightly different than ours, and they're trying to reduce the hours in the day. And so, not to say that that's not a valid plan, but our students will be in school when they're at school. If they're blended, they'll be in that classroom the entire day, and then in face-to-face, it'll be our normally scheduled school day.
Okay. My next question would be for middle schoolers. I know they typically move from classroom to classroom, and I'm not sure if you already covered this because my phone cut out for a minute, so I'm sorry if I'm asking a question that was already answered, but will they still get some release? Like, will they still get to move around to their different classrooms, or are they in one classroom all day?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the learning modality they're in. So in a blended format, they're not going to be, so traditional face-to-face, they will be moving from class to class. What will be different, though, is that we're going to be cohorting students to passing time. And what that means is we're going to have an expanded time for passing, and that gives time for disinfecting desks and things like that. But it also allows for the fact of students that are not all going to be grouped in the hallway together at the same time. So we wouldn't necessarily have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade children all in the buildings and the hallways at the same time. It would be too large of a group. So we're going to be expanding those passing times and having them travel and move on a schedule that limits the number of kids in the hallway at any given time.
Mm-hmm. So that would be for a blended too, right? They would still get to move around. They would just be in certain groups.
In a blended format, most of the time the students are going to stay put. They in a blended, they're not going to move as much as a face-to-face student will.
So they would be in like one classroom all day?
They would be in one classroom, maybe two, during the day. And they could experience more classrooms if they took some face-to-face elective courses. So, that's certainly going to be dependent on how their courses get selected. And if they choose to do, face-to-face elective classes, they would see additional classrooms and move more than just, a couple times.
Okay. And my last question is, by chance, if a miracle happens and we come out of all these phases, phase 4 and 5, will everything go back to normal? Will these children not have to wear a mask all day? Will they be able to go back to their regular program if a miracle occurs?
Yeah, I think that there are some things that are going to go back to whatever quote unquote normal looks like, right? There'll be an opportunity for the vast majority of students to see more semblance of normalcy. We will always, I believe, operate now in a more heightened sense of cleaning and disinfecting and sanitizing. So I do feel like there are probably going to be some things, in terms of masks, moving into phase 5 and 6, that would not be a requirement anymore. But at this point, we're not showing or hearing any signs that that's going to happen soon. But certainly that would be the plan moving outside of the pandemic for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one up is Marcia Henson. You're unmuted.
Hello, this is her husband, John.
Oh, sorry.
Lovely grandfather. I got several questions, but I'm a simple man, so simple answers. If she goes back full time, who's going to be monitoring the kids on the bus? Because we know how kids are. They're going to get in each other's face. They'll probably switch masks. And a bus driver she cannot keep control of that. So is there something looking into that? And the second one, my student will be a 5th grader. Is she no longer going to be at Cyrene, or is she going to be at a different school? Do we have a choice? These are based on her going back full time.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question. I don't know, Rod, if you want to take that.
It was about monitoring on the bus.
Yes, on the bus. Who's going to monitor
right
the kids?
Right now we're expecting about 70% capacity on the bus.
He's coming in and out.
Okay, Roger, coming in and out.
On the bus at all time.
I'll go ahead and I think I have the question.
I muted him.
Okay. Sorry, Rod, you're cutting out there. So I think the question was, how are we going to handle managing the masks on the bus? We're going to operate very simply. We do have obviously many dynamics that you're bringing up. So what would happen if a student didn't wear their mask, right? That particular student's going to be cited. We're going to talk with the family. We don't have an opportunity to have multiple chances for that to happen. So likely it would be, you have to wear your mask. If we see you with your mask off again, the bus driver would make a note, and then that student would be asked to be participate. Their option would be to be participating online only. They're not able to be in the bus. They're not able to be in school in this phase 4 if they do not have a mask on. So we're going to have some, obviously challenges managing all of that, and there's going to have to be some support from home, just because it's a non-negotiable for us.
Okay. We're dealing with children. Oh, I'm sorry. We're dealing with children. Okay, we know they're going to get in each other's faces on the bus. We know they might trade masks, but they're not going to. The driver has to concentrate on getting our kids to school safely. So why don't we have another parent or a staff on the bus to monitor the, because all it takes is one child, and someone like us who are grandparents, I'm diabetic and everything, all it takes is one child. Mm-hmm. So, the bus driver has to concentrate on driving.
Yep, I certainly understand, and we do have in several cases where we have aides that ride buses, and those things are pieces that we have in place. I would tell you though, at the end of the day, if the concern is, those types of situations, there's one thing that I can tell you that I cannot guarantee, and that is the fact that we will be able to 100% prevent COVID from entering into the school buildings. And so I think in the situation where you have a lot of those concerns, which are very realistic, we will have some buses that do have aids on them. But the reality is, even in that scenario, there could be a student that makes a choice. And so if that's a factor for you, that's why we're offering that online, or even, other options where you can simply transport to school. So those are factors that are going to exist that are very difficult for us to completely say 100% of the time will never happen. The other part to your question, I think, was about, she's a fifth grader. Yeah, she's
about her being a fifth grader at Cyrene.
Okay, yep. So she's going to actually be a fifth grader now at Deke Elementary School. So she'll have an opportunity.
So I don't have a choice. We don't have a choice as parents between Elms and Deke.
You can file that request. At this point, we're, the plans as they've been laid out would be that if you're in Cyrene, you'd be going to Deke if you were, in fifth grade, and then kind of move from there. But you certainly can reach out to our office and make a request if you'd like to do that.
Okay. Question. If and we're leaning towards her going online full time, and the parents out there who don't have computers or pay for internet stuff, being we pay school taxes and our child ain't going to school, are they going to be provided internet so they can, the ones that can't afford it or can't?
So
otherwise, if my child's going online full time and I'm paying school taxes for 15 hours a week is all I'm getting out of it, and I'm having to pay internet, I'm having to, computer, all that. I can afford it, but there's probably some parents that can't. Is the school providing some way that they can get internet, or I don't know,
Yeah. So it's the ongoing debate, right? And you can see that raging on social media right now. The situation that we are dealing with, though, is we're offering all three of these options. It's costing the school district, in terms of your tax dollars, significantly much more money to be able to put all of these modalities in place and provide these options. And so at the end of the day, we're still offering full-fledged, full service, full support services. It's a choice, and I understand that for some, that's a challenging choice to make, but we are committed to making our online program very rigorous and very meaningful. So I understand, the frustration on the mathematics side, but what I would say is that We do have multiple opportunities for free internet services. There are many grants out there. We can connect our families with those service providers. We also have opportunities for expanded Wi-Fi around our buildings. We have actually upgraded some of our boosting signals. So, a family could potentially come. We've even had some students in cars that have come and sat in a parking lot during COVID, during the pandemic, and we can boost that signal. So we've provided those resources, and we'll continue to do that. So we want to try and be as big a help as we can to the kids and to the families. And we're very sensitive to the fact that, we do have families that are more at risk and need some of these services. So appreciate where you're coming from. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Ashley. Ashley, you are unmuted.
Hi, I had a couple questions. As far as the masks on the bus, the issue with that, is it fair that the kids are going to get in trouble on the bus? Like the elementary kids, they don't understand the COVID. They don't understand why they're getting in trouble. I think it's hard for them to be going back to school, especially K-5, who are more excited to see their friends than worried about keeping a mask on all day because they don't understand what's happening. I just don't think I've got a 5-year-old, and I don't think it's fair that, she's going to get in trouble all day if she doesn't keep her mask on or in the hallway or to the bathroom or, and so I'm leaning more on keeping her home online. And I've got a middle or a high schooler now this year whose electives was my next question. If she's like the art class that she wanted to take, that's not online. Can we choose or change the electives for them to just be able to go online?
Yeah, so in an online format, there are going to be a handful of elective choices. It will be limited. So, she's not going to, if you're asking, can she just take the art class at the high school? That could be potentially a possibility, but she would have to come into the school to do that. In terms of, kids getting in trouble, or so to speak, we're not looking at making a disciplinary stance here. That's not what this is. And we're going to be developmentally appropriate. We have to understand that children, especially 5-year-olds, are going to respond differently to all of this. So there's going to be a lot of teaching on, what this looks like. But, we're not necessarily looking to have, anyone get in trouble. But it'll be a conversation with parents to say, we just simply can't have kids in the building if they're not wearing their mask. And so we believe, and we're hopeful that most of the kids are going to be able to navigate that. There's going to be some that have more challenges, and we're going to work with them. We know that, a 5-year-old's going to need a lot more support with this whole thing than somebody who's in middle school. So we do recognize that. So your point is well placed.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the electives, if she wants to switch out of the art class and not come into the school, can she switch her electives to one that's she's able to do online?
Yes, she could.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Next up is Amanda. Amanda, you are unmuted.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you're doing in this uncertain time for the kids. So my question is, I have a high school student and I was looking at the courses that are offered. She's in all honors classes and AP classes, and they're not offered for online. I was looking at the frequently asked question sheet before I signed in, and it says that I have to email the high school counselors. I was just wondering how I should vote by Friday if I don't have any information other than she has to go face-to-face for these classes.
Yeah, that's a great question. The situation with an AP child, like you're describing, is one where, we have usually one AP class that is offered, for at our high school, for example. So we don't have enough students to say run two, like an online or even a hybrid and a face-to-face, because we only maybe have, say it's an AP statistics or something like that. There's only one section of it. So we can't we can't actually run multiple sections. It's not going to work. So, you know, the situation that you would be dealing with is you have a couple options. Number one, if they wanted to do blended, you know, they could take their courses, their core courses blended, and then take additional AP courses on top of that. They could also go online and take, you know, whatever offerings that they would want to take, and then come in for the hours that AP was offered, and so they would be coming in just for those hours. And then a final option, which would be something you could work out with the counselors. In some rare cases, if there's a child who's extremely accelerated, they could participate in a Michigan virtual class, and there are AP online courses through that type of program. So we do still have some flexible options for you, but it's very difficult for us to deduce that, you know, and so whichever direction you go, the counselors can work with you to flip you to the right modality.
Okay, so if I chose online classes for her, because right now she has all AP classes or honors classes, would she get bumped to like the lower, like say English 10 automatically with her schedule if you went to online only instead of honors English 10? Does that make sense?
No, not necessarily, but I think your daughter might be in a unique situation that is probably going to require a counselor conversation. You know, probably the easiest thing to do is to sign her up for face-to-face, because what could easily happen is you could decide, you know what, I really want her online. And so you're making those specific choices and picking which classes you want to go with. But it's going to be difficult, I think, if you say you want her fully online and then somehow it doesn't, the schedule that you're hoping for doesn't work out. It's going to be more difficult to get her back into those classes. So I think it's going to just be more of an individualized counselor conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Lori S. Lori, you are unmuted.
Hi, I was had a few questions in terms of what kindergarten might look like. So in terms of, I was looking at the hybrid modality first. Is there going to be a choice for parents to choose if the in-person days are Monday, Tuesday versus Thursday, Friday, just kind of like everyone else here trying to figure out childcare and planning?
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Lori, even though we really wanted to take that into consideration, and we really wanted to put that into effect, because you're dealing with something that's really brand new, and scheduling, it's difficult for sure. The main thing with that was we were worried about, you know, when we're deciding who's going to go into each hybrid, if we got like a surplus of people that all wanted Monday, Tuesday, and, you know, not enough that wanted the Thursday, Friday, we'd have this huge overload, and we'd run into a situation where we'd have more than 15 in the classroom. So we weren't taking formal requests on that. Is that's pretty accurate, Alice and Dave, and Ben?
Correct. We still have to also kind of keep in mind numbers and dynamics of kids and all of that other stuff, even in the blended model. So there won't be really necessarily choice between Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, but we will try to get that information to you as quickly as possible so that you can start planning for childcare and all that other stuff.
And what I don't know that this helps, because as they've already said, it's not a guarantee, but on your selection form, you can, if you choose blended, there is a place to pick your preference. So you would have the ability to at least let us know, and we'll work as hard as we can to accommodate that. But as Jeremy said, if we have, you know, 75% of people that want Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, or whichever, obviously we couldn't meet everyone's request to that.
Well, understood. Also, in terms of within the classroom, I know the children are going to be able to have recess, but is there also going to be in-classroom play where the students are able to, you know, interact? Because in kindergarten, social play is... yeah. This is my kindergartner.
That's our favorite right there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Socialization and interactive play is just as important for learning and development as the whole academic portion. So that's a question I have. And then also, this might even be a question that you can't answer yet, but do you anticipate at some point like parent volunteers or helpers?
I can start by answering the parent volunteer question. We are going to be limiting volunteers in the school for the time that we're in phase 4. At this time, we don't feel like we can accommodate parent volunteers. It adds another dynamic. Our staff have to complete some staff safety checks when they come into the buildings, and so it's adding a layer of complexity that we want to try and avoid at the beginning of the year. Obviously, if we can, we want to involve as many parents as possible in those classrooms. So that would be something we'd like to do. And then Alice, if you want to take the play question.
Yeah, in kindergarten, obviously, yeah, you're right. That socialization piece is super important. We are going to try our best at creating activities for kids to be able to do those socializing activities, but with that caveat of trying to also keep them safe. So it might not look exactly like it did last year, but we're going to try our best to make sure that we give them the greatest experience possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Next up is Stephen Schultz. Stephen, you are unmuted.
I feel a little bit better about that. I mean, just, they're recognizing the importance at that age of being able to be playing together. Yeah.
I think it says I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Actually, I'm not Stephen. I'm Angela. Hi, Lori. I have so many questions, but I just wanted to thank you guys so much for everything that you're doing. I think Swartz Creek has the best teachers, the best administrators, and I know this is a terrible situation for all of us. And there is a right decision. It's whatever one you pick. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, but I still have questions. So I know you said that we can't guarantee what days you might go if you pick a blended situation. If you have multiple kids, can they go on the same days?
In my person.
Did you hear me?
I think you might have locked up. Ben, are you there?
I don't know if you could hear me, but can my kids go on the same days if they both choose blended?
I would think so.
Yeah, to answer
that, Rod's giving a thumbs up here.
Yes, you can.
Yes,
We talked about that. We had talked about that in one of the meetings where we thought some parents would many parents would want to make sure their parents or their kids went the same days. But we also thought there might be some parents that would want them to go opposite days, especially to help them with the online component at home or one-on-one time with one while the other went to school. But that was something we decided would be an option that you guys could choose. If you wanted to.
If we pick blended, we can have them both go, all the kids go on the same days if we want.
Yes.
Or on different days if we want them to go on different days.
Yes.
Okay. And then is there going to be a robust education to all students at all levels about infection control that they can do themselves? So good hand washing, washing your hands before you eat, not touching your face. The things that are really going to prevent COVID-19 from spreading.
Great question. Yeah, I definitely think that all the teachers are going to be hammering that in their classroom. I mean, it's good practice to do anyway, even in not during these times and definitely going forward. But I think that's going to kind of be crucial in all the modalities to just give those lessons because it's current. It's what we're dealing with right now. And I know the parents are doing a phenomenal job at home getting kids ready for all those things. But yeah, definitely from the teachers I've had conversations with, that is the plan to implement a lot of that, just the rigor of the importance of this and how to properly do it.
And is there support for the teachers for that? Because I feel so bad for all of you teachers for having to take all of this on. Is there support where, maybe there's an outside entity that's doing some of this stuff for you guys? Because I cannot imagine having to do all of this as a teacher.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I don't know an answer to that for sure, but I definitely want to have that conversation because, even though I'm very, I feel pretty adequate about being able to teach that, I would definitely like somebody to kind of come in and make sure that I'm covering all the points so I can share that with students. That's a conversation I definitely want to take back and have with administration and other teachers. So great point.
Because I know that myself, I am a nurse. I have worked in the pediatric ICU. I've worked in the neonatal intensive ICU. I work in another area at this time, and I know that the previous participant that just asked questions is also a nurse. And you have resources at your disposal. Just ask for us. We would come in, and I know we don't want volunteers, but I wouldn't consider myself a volunteer. I would consider myself an expert on infection control. You have free volunteers at your disposal. Ask for them.
That's incredible. Definitely. Well, can you reach out to even your building principal, but also to Ben and share that? I think that's definitely something we should consider. So great.
Yeah,
Thank you
because
so much.
we all want all of us to stay safe. We all have grandparents who have issues. None of us want to get sick. We know it could happen, but there's the number one thing we need to do is to teach our kids, okay, if it's a requirement right now to wear a mask, this is what we have to do to keep everyone safe. And I think kids really are resilient, and they will do great things for us. We just need to teach them and give them the tools.
Yes, that's a great point. And you're right. We are absolutely all in this together. So it's just like pooling resources like that and bringing the experts in. I fully support that idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for offering up those services. We appreciate you. Next up is, sorry if I pronounce this wrong, but Magila Wheeler. You are unmuted.
Yes, I have a question. My question, you might have already hit this already, but if you're going to school and you're doing the full-time face-to-face, are the classrooms, number of people in the classrooms going to be smaller at all? Or is it going to be the same amount as it has normally been?
That's a good question. Most likely there will be a reduction because a lot, obviously there's going to be a percentage of our children who are taking online classes. There's going to be a percentage of our children that are maybe doing blended. And so you're going to see the numbers in classrooms draw down a little bit. But if you're sending your child to a face-to-face format, we can't make any promises about, say, normally there's 26 kids and now we're going to reduce that number down to 20. You should plan on typical classroom sizes if it's factoring into your decision for making a choice.
Okay, and also for the like the third through fifth grade, did I hear you say they are required to wear masks as well, or they're not?
They're not required to wear masks in the classroom. They are required to wear them during the passing, if they're going in the hallway or on the bus or traveling from the bus to their classroom. So they're not required to wear them in the classroom, K-5.
Can I ask why?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons why. The Governor's Council addressed that and looked into the challenges associated. And somebody talked earlier about a 5-year-old or even a third grader wearing a mask. They have a tendency to touch their masks. They have a tendency to then touch other things. And so it actually becomes less sanitary, in fact, with younger children in classrooms for a full day. To wear masks. And so the recommendation from health professionals as well as the Governor's Council was to not have children in those primary grades in elementary school wearing a mask.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your help.
Sure.
Thank you. Next up is Jen. Jen, you are unmuted.
Hi, my question has to do with the high school students, particularly if we select the hybrid model. If our student has signed up for courses such as like an honors level course or a foreign language course, earlier you had stated that if not enough students sign up for particular courses in the hybrid model, it may not be able to be offered. If that is the case, will those students be automatically just placed into, say, an online version of that course or the face-to-face version, or will they be put into a different course altogether? And then kind of on a related note, when will the high school students, when can they expect to probably start getting their schedules so that we can, if we need to make adjustments, we can do that?
It's a great question. So first answer is that yes, they would need to have a conversation with their counselor. So the counselors are going to be back next week at the high school, and they're going to be working through a lot of these modalities and the choices that are being made. They have a really tall task in front of them. So the administration at the high school and all the counseling team, this is their first priority right now. So they're going to be working very diligently. I would not be prepared to be getting a schedule like next week or anything like that. It's going to take them, a few weeks to get that done. Typically, our schedule pickup happens at registration, which we're not doing the typical registration under the pandemic guidelines. So the high school is going to be issuing some further guidance in the next week on when those schedules are going to be expected to be done. But in the situation where we have, let's just play out the scenario as you've asked. If we had, say, 12 students that signed up for a course and we could not run it in that fashion, those 12 students are getting having a conversation with the counselor to say, do you want to take it online? This is your option for online. Would you like to take it face-to-face? These are your options for face-to-face. And then each child will, and their family will be able to make that call.
Okay, so the counselors will be reaching out in those situations.
Yes.
Okay, and then one last question too. I have a ninth grader. Is there going to be any sort of high school orientation this year like they've done in past years if our students are going to end up being in the school for either face-to-face or the hybrid model?
Yep. So we have a really robust program called Link at the high school, Web at the middle school. We're going to continue those programs. They are going to be run through a virtual format this year. And so our trainers, our teachers that are the web leaders and the Link leaders are being trained on how to deliver that in a little bit of a different format this year. So again, more information on those orientation programs are coming out, but we're going to try and make them as helpful as we can, because I know there's a lot of anxiety when you go into 6th grade and also when you go into 9th grade, just the change of, a new building and all of those things. So we'll be doing that for sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next one up is Bonnie Duncan. Bonnie, you are unmuted.
Hi. So my question is middle school specific. If a student, I guess I'm just looking mostly for clarification. If a student were to choose blended, am I correct in understanding that they will still be at school all day, regardless of whether their electives may be on site or face to face?
Yeah, so that is correct. So if you, for example, in a blended format, if you have a middle school student, they would have a couple hours of their day. Usually it's going to be chunked together typically. So in the morning, middle of the day, or afternoon. And they're going to have that decision point of, are they going out to a face-to-face elective? Really, that's going to look like band primarily. If they're not going out, there will be online electives that they can take in the classroom. So they'll be there able to do that on a computer. The teachers can also and will also be doing some other more personalized enrichment possibilities. If there's a student that says, I'm interested in something else and maybe there's not the perfect online class. And then I guess the final option would be to, make a decision point to say that you would want to pick that child up, at a particular point. If it was at the beginning of the day or end of the day and they weren't going to be missing their core instruction, you could make those arrangements as well.
Great, thank you so much. And then just one final part to that. is there a place we can look that I maybe just missed in looking myself at which electives would be available for those that are doing, I guess more specifically online, if, you know, they're not in the building and can't go to them face to face? Does that make sense?
Sure. Rod, I'm not sure if we have the offering catalog for Kickstand that is published anywhere. Oh, Rod's muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Daniel has that, so we could get that from Daniel. I don't have it up anywhere.
So to answer your question, Bonnie, there is a catalog that is out there. It's very flexible. Most of those electives are asynchronous type courses, as we talked about earlier. But
Okay.
you know, that would be something I would encourage you to reach out to the building principal, and they can put you in touch with the person that has some of those additional documents.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person up is Kimberly. Kimberly, you are unmuted.
Hi, a couple of quick questions. One, are they going to, or are we going to be able to know which teachers are teaching which modality before we make our decision, if that's going to affect it at all? And then I was also wondering if we're still on schedule to start the school year with the building construction and with the switching of schools and everything. Is it still going to be our hard start time, or are we thinking about potentially pushing that for or further? And then there was another question, but I've forgotten it. So go ahead.
Yeah, we are on track to start school on time. The ceiling grids are going in at elementaries. They're, you know, I think when you're dealing with construction, there are always little setbacks here and there. One of the things that got pushed back were our maker spaces, just because of the fact that, you know, with COVID, a lot of the contractors couldn't get on site. Some of the site work in terms of the parking lots, we had hoped to be able to get those in. They're likely going to have to push those out because they're not going to be able to get them done in time for a safe start to school. But in terms of the physical buildings, the air conditioning, the windows, the ceilings, the new office spaces, the safety zones, those are all completed. There will be completed for the start of school, and we're good to go. And that also goes for the you know, the shifting elementary model. There's going to be quite a bit of information shared at the end of this week on some of the pretty exciting details around our elementary model shift. That'll be coming out at the end of this week in terms of other programs and transportation, things that you guys can take advantage of with that. So that's the answer to, are we going to be ready to start school? In terms of the question about teachers, we really don't have, I mean, the teachers certainly do have tentative assignments. That's not something that we typically post and say, you know, these are the blended ones and these are the, you know, face-to-face ones. We've obviously, we've never been in this situation before, but we're not posting those just because people tend to get kind of attached to, well, I thought this one was going to be this and then it switched. And we obviously are going to have to staff our teachers according to what the needs are. So if we have more teachers that are, or more families that are looking for a blended format versus a face-to-face or vice versa, some of those tentative assignments could change. And so, you know, we're not going to be posting, I guess what I'm saying, like the list of who is tentatively slated to do that. But certainly if there's a teacher that you want, you can request and still make teacher requests to the buildings. And we are taking those.
Good with that. All right, next one up is Hannah. Hannah, you are unmuted. All right, I'm going to skip down. Go to Danielle Smith. You're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. I just had a quick question, and we touched on it a little bit as far as school times. But basically for the blended mode, are they going to be, I know it sounds like it's going to be Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday. Will they be going at the same normal times as well as their normal building?
Yeah, so technically their school day will be the same, but there are a couple little caveats to that. We are going to be opening up the opportunity for students in the blended mode model to get into their classrooms a little early. So in the event that the parent's driving the child, they could feasibly get to the building and into their classrooms ahead of some of the general population, so they're not, out walking with the majority of the kids. And so that would be a possibility, and that also would exist at the middle school and high school. So we would open up the possibility for them to arrive a little early and then also leave a little bit early, so that they would not necessarily be out in the crowd walking into the general population. And then, as we've said before, they're not going to be moving near as much as the face-to-face students during the day.
Right. Thank you. Very nice. And then are they going to be in that same building they would normally be? Like if they are normally going to Moorish, will they still be at Moorish?
We do believe that that's the case. Certainly a lot of it's going to depend on, the numbers and who's signing up. So we believe there will be enough to support that at each building, but, depending on, what is selected will really drive that. So those conversations are going to have to be had. So, in your example, let's say we had enough between, enough to run a fully first grade blended course, but we didn't have enough to run first grade at Moorish and at Cyrene. We only had it in one location. That would be kind of the tricky nuance there, and we would have to have some conversations with families to see what they'd want to do with that. So we'll know a lot more about that next week.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Lakeisha, you are unmuted.
Hello. Thank you all for doing this and answering all the questions. It's really, very appreciated.
Sure.
I had a question about busing, because right now I have an elementary school student. She'll be in the 4th grade, and she couldn't ride the bus because our subdivision was not in the home elementary school. But now with them splitting up the grades, will busing be able to be provided to homes or near the homes now for all students, no matter what elementary school they go to?
Lakeisha, that's a really good question that I don't think I'm going to be able to give a specific answer to your, situation. What I would say is that a lot of our stops continue to be our stops in the new model. So transportation, interestingly, actually is going to find that we're going to have some reduced bus times in terms of kids on the bus. We're prioritizing keeping our little ones, our K2 students, on for the shortest period of time, but they will ride together as a family. It is entirely possible that there's going to be a stop that's closer to your house or your home than what maybe previously was. But that would be something that if you reached out to the operations and transportation department, Mrs. Penrod, her name is Mary Penrod, she will absolutely be able to give you a specific answer on where your stop would be and all of those types of things.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Alicia, you are up.
Hello, actually, I had my hand raised to address any questions that may not have been addressed as we're checking the.
Alicia, you muted yourself.
So I think maybe the comment, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think she was hoping that we made sure that we got to any questions in the chat. Mr. Heatherton's been manning that, and so has Mrs. Lashbrook. Actually, all the panelists have. So if there is a need feel free to, check the chat that we're making sure that we're adding answers to that. So we're going to have time for, we're winding down. We have about 5 minutes left or so. So, feel free if there are additional questions, we want to try and answer as many as we can.
All right, Kayla Redmond, you're up. You're unmuted.
Hey, you guys for doing this. I think many of my questions have been answered, but having a child that is medically fragile is a little bit terrifying sending her back to school, but being a working parent, I really don't have a choice at this point. My biggest concern, honestly, is she's currently being assessed for sensory processing disorder and some other things, and we're leaning into an IEP last year, and I'm hoping that's going to carry through this year to actually get her set up. But I'm wondering, how is the first day of school going to look? She's transitioning from a kindergartner that was at Elms into being a first grader in Moorish. So I'm just wondering how that's going to go, as far as we just have to drop them off at the door and go, or is there going to be an opportunity for someone to possibly help her get into her classroom, or how's that going to go for kids that might have struggles with that?
Oh yeah, we're going to provide a lot of help, but I'll let Mrs. Lashbrook talk about that.
Yeah, so definitely on that very first day of school, even though it's going to look a little bit different than we've always run it, we will have a lot of adult support staff. Teachers will be outside as well to kind of welcome their kids. Just like we always have in the past, we'll have signs with teacher names on it so that you can kind of quickly walk your kid up to the line where their teacher's name is. The teacher will be there. You could say a quick hi. And all this will be outside so that we're kind of in a more aired out environment. And then once we have the majority of the kids that are face to face, we will stagger walk them probably into the buildings and get them into their classrooms.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that was a huge concern. I do have a second question. How will sanitizing the playground go? Has that been discussed yet?
Yeah, it has. So as I stated before, we have these machines that apply a fine mist that has an agent that does kill COVID. Those machines will be used throughout the day, to disinfect in between recesses. So our plan right now will call for them to do that, after morning recess, after lunch recess, and then obviously after the afternoon recess. So we will be out there multiple times a day to disinfect it. Okay. I think, obviously, as I stated before, we're doing a very enhanced sanitation processes, but there's certainly no way of guaranteeing that, there hasn't been another child that may have touched the monkey bars. But we are keeping the kids in much smaller groups at recess and in different locations on the playground. And the blended students will be in an entirely different recess time than everyone else. So the numbers of students on the playground will be significantly lower.
Okay. I'm sorry about that before. I was a little late, so I appreciate answering that again.
Sure.
Thank you. Sarah, you are unmuted.
Hi, I just had a quick question about the hybrid model. On Wednesdays, there's no structured class time. Is that meant to be just a full day of online schooling, or is it an off day for them? What's happening with the Mondays if they're going to school on either Monday or Tuesday or Thursday or Friday?
Mr. Love?
Sure. So the off days that are not like face-to-face, there will be information, or there will be activities and things like that provided through Canvas for your child to work through. So, while, if your child, let's say, shows Monday, Tuesday as their face-to-face time, the remainder of the week would be an opportunity for them to do the activity, the online portion of the hybrid model. So, their reading lessons or math lessons or science social studies, those would be posted on there. And depending on the teacher, it might look a little different, because there's some teachers that are thinking about, recording videos and posting those for the kids to watch during those times to help them with their at-home lessons as well. So there definitely will be, on the days they're not actually in face-to-face class in that model, they will be doing additional things online to support the learning that's going on in the classroom.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Right.
Thank you. Next up is Katie Miller. Katie, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm actually going to ask some questions for Hannah because her phone messed up. She wants to know, will credits stay the same for high school? And also, if they do online, will they have to have their camera/audio on?
It's a really good question. You know, that's getting into some detail that is going to be very dependent on the particular course. So there likely would be a scenario where there's an interactive session. You know, those things oftentimes are optional, but we are trying to encourage everyone to participate in those just from the social aspect. There is an opportunity for many of the things that there's not going to be a camera or you know, audio, but there will be some time where, you know, potentially the teacher's looking for more of a discussion, you know, in a video format. And so I would think that that would be something that they would do. But I think that's going to be largely driven by the teacher or the instructor. The first question was, are credits going to remain the same? And the answer is yes. We will maintain our curriculum, our course credits and graduation requirements for the state of Michigan and the district remain the same.
Okay, and then she has another question too. How are they going to be redoing the schedules that were made at the end of last year if they do hybrid or online?
You know, in terms of the schedules that were made last year, there were very few set in stone schedules that were made because of, you know, having to be out starting in March. So most of that work was cataloged, and then we're revisiting it now. So we're going to couple what requests were made along with what modalities now parents are choosing, and we'll make those decisions over the next month.
Okay, awesome. I do have one more question for myself. My oldest is supposed to be going to the Virtual Learning Academy. Will he have to go to school, or can he just do it all strictly online?
He can do it either way.
Okay.
And Mr. Nolan will be able to work with you on setting up a plan that works best for you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I also put in the chat that the kickstand course guide is on the VLC website.
So for the parents that wanted to know about the middle school elective offerings, there would be, and high school for that matter, on the VLC website, there's a kickstand course offerings, and you should be able to find that there. So thank you, Mr. Heatherton.
And just to expand on that, we are looking to accelerate for the middle school as well, possibly, and that has some more elective offerings as well. Next up is Toddy. You are unmuted.
Okay, my question, Mr. Nika, that my son speak different language. So if he end up like, of course, like he do the blended or full-time face-to-face, are they still gonna do that when need a test? Are they gonna still get the help that they needed for people who don't, they speak more than one language?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Our ESL services, our English as a Second Language services, will still be provided. There will be WIDA testing as well. And Mr. Bouchon, who works in our district, will certainly be getting to any of our students that need those services so that you can continue that plan.
Okay. The thing about it, I'm still kind of, in a way, like I keep debating between face-to-face and then the blended one. So let me just rewind again and make sure I understand it correctly. Did you say that the kids go face-to-face mandatory, have to stay the whole time wearing masks? And if they don't, do they get kids in a way like how do you call it, penalty or maybe like warning? There's period of time. Do you get the kids outside to take a break because basically like you're breathing back again for CO2 back again? So I'm sure all the parents understand this, and I'm just trying for all of us for the will of benefits for the kids.
Certainly, yes. So there are times, depending on the grade level, where they wouldn't be wearing a mask. One of those times would be at lunchtime, for example. They're going to be socially distanced in that space when they're seated at the lunch table. And that really mirrors the same type of process that you would find if you were to go to a restaurant right now in Michigan in phase 4. The same requirements would be in place there. We're not trying to debate with anybody about the benefits of masks. We're not trying to mass shame anybody. We're not looking to discipline students. But we are looking to make it clear that we have to have that requirement met. It's a part of our safety protocols. And so if we're entering into a situation where there's a student that either willfully or unwillfully continues to not have a mask, not wear a mask, take the mask off, then we would be looking at that student, not necessarily in a disciplinary situation, but just probably the best thing for them would be to go online, because we have to follow those requirements, and we're under that same guidance. But I think hopefully I've answered most of your question. There would be some time where they wouldn't be wearing it, but those places are pretty few and far between if they're a 6 through 12 student.
Right. Okay. So, kids is kids. So how about if they, let's say, for instance, kids lost their mask, it happens, stuff like that. Is the school able to provide mask for the kids? I'm sure they're going to bring their mask with them from home, their cloth mask or whatever they have to be provided. But if they lost it because, is the school able to provide them with it, or they have to bring extra? I don't know.
Great question. We absolutely will provide masks for students that don't have them or that lose them. We have them at the buildings. We're encouraging parents, because usually the masks that we provide are going to be the paper masks that are blue on the outside, white on the inside. And so we will provide them in those situations. And if there's a need, certainly we will meet that need. But what I would say is that most often children find that they have a particular style of mask that they like, or a design on it, and the parent has one that they've been more comfortable with. Any face covering will suffice. So we need to make sure that they have one, but they're not required to wear the ones that the school issues. But if they forget, lose it, something happens, we will provide them a replacement.
Definitely. So last question, if you don't mind, please. We talked, as I said, the first question was about like the one who speak another language. So if I choose my son to be blended, do I still get like the lady or somebody come like help him? Normally there's some people come like one-on-one. How is that gonna work if we're trying to keep that 6 apart?
Yeah, we're still going to provide those services, but they're going to have to be scheduled at the time that they're physically present in the building. So obviously it's going to be more individually set up. And so that's what Mr. Bashan would do, is be able to work with you on setting that schedule in place.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you. I mean, I know you do the best you can, and it's just something that nobody were expecting it. So,
sure.
As I said, there's a lot to be learned about, and hopefully the school will also I'm sure you guys can cooperate with us, like, because sometimes me personal, not everything like with the rules I know. So I'm sure the counselor and everyone will be working with us, and I just want to put this, to keep it like you're aware of, basically like what's going on.
Sure.
Let me put it this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all you guys' service. You guys amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia is back. She's got something to say here. Alicia, you are unmuted.
Sorry, I think I accidentally touched myself to mute it earlier. So what I was saying is that we do have great staff that are monitoring that chat room, and I've been as well. All questions that I've seen have been addressed. So if anybody has come on after the start, I do recommend, are we going to be able to actually have this replay at all, Travis, so that people can access that again?
Yep, it's posted to YouTube and will be recorded. Okay. So if you go to the board channel,
so
you can watch it.
Great. I just advise people to check that and see if their question has been answered previously. And then as well to go to the website that's got a lot of the documents and references that Ben has spoken to. And then lastly, I do have one parent question myself. Do we have any information or confirmation from GISD regarding Genesee Career Institute? If they're going to be holding that, and if so, in what format?
Sure. Yeah. So GCI is fully up and operational. They will be requiring the same requirements in terms of face coverings. They'll be requiring the same sanitation protocols. The difference with GCI and every other school building that is very unique, just because that facility is, state of the art. The GCI classrooms, every single GCI classroom has an equally sized lab that's attached. So the way that GCI classrooms are going to run is that every classroom, let's say they have 30 kids in there, 15 will be in the classroom space, 15 will be in the lab, and the teacher will float between them. And that's how they're planning to run all the GCI courses. They will follow the daily schedule that they would for face-to-face students. So in the event that you were a blended student or an online student, but you were taking a GCI course, you would have to get yourself there every day at the GCI course time, and then they're splitting those kids out into the 2 rooms that are associated with each class.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. We're going to try and wrap it up here. We've got we've gone over. We're going to try and end at 7. So I don't know if there's any other questions that we didn't answer that you'd like us to. We'll try and get in maybe 1 or 2 more.
Ben, there was a few questions on the lunch, if you want to just talk about how that will work again.
Sure. So lunches at the elementary school. First of all, breakfast at the elementary school will all be grab and go. Lunch at the elementary school will all be in the classroom. So the lunch person is actually going to bring the food to the classroom. So we're going to be setting up lunch schedules. Parents and kids are going to know what's being served, and they can sign up to purchase. 1 classroom at a time will come in the hallway, get their food, and then go back into the classroom to eat. There won't be more than 1 class in the hall at once as we're doing that. At the middle school and high school, we're going to be reducing the number of seats in the cafeteria by at least 50%. We're going to make sure that there are students that aren't sitting across from each other, so they're going to be sitting in a staggered fashion. There also going to be a situation where there's an entirely additional space, large space at the high school and middle school where we'll see probably about a 40% to 60% in that range reduction in number of people in the lunchroom at any one time. And you factor in all of the different things we have going on. The students in the blended modalities at the middle school and the high school, they will eat lunch in their classrooms like the elementary school students do. And so that will be just a little bit of a change in pace for them. So that's how we're planning to execute lunches.
Will they be able to bring their own lunch?
Yes, they will. It'll have to stay with them or in their locker, but certainly that's available for them to do.
And then last question, I think, before we wrap up, looks like is Danielle asked, will the students need to be tested before coming back to face-to-face learning?
At this time, there is no requirement for testing. That protocol could change as we're working with the health department on a very regular basis. So the health department will drive that, and certainly could drive that in individual circumstances when there are students who have been exposed. And so, we're hopeful that we'll be able to kind of work through these, and everybody's going to have to be flexible, of course. But we're trying to pull off, you know, one of the largest shifts in the history of American public education. And I have to say, I've been very impressed with our staff, our teachers, the way that they bring their energy each day, our administrative team for thinking outside the box. You know, we're very, very fortunate here to be able to have that. I'm also grateful for all of you that participated tonight. I hope that those of you that are watching this after the fact will be able to hopefully get some good information and the looking at the other documents that we've already put out there, the FAQs, the other one-pagers, that you'll have plenty of information to make your decisions. So thank you all so much for participating, and thank you to Travis and Rod and Alice and Jeremy. You guys are great, and I appreciate you guys helping to man the panel tonight. And so with that, we'll close it down, and we'll be prepared to post this on our board YouTube channel, so it'll be available for streaming and viewing, and then maybe we'll get that link on the parent learning modality page once it's rendered as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.